Hello and welcome to the Connected Yoga Teacher Podcast. I'm your host, Shannon Crow. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And this podcast is being recorded on the land of the Anishinaabe, Odawa, and Mississauga people. If you've been here for a while, you know that it's really important to me that I keep learning about this land, the First Nations people who cared for it for so long, and also the history and culture of my settler and immigrant ancestors. If you're new here and wondering, who is this that I'm listening to? I'm a Canadian yoga teacher, a mom, an entrepreneur, and a forever student of life who just loves to ask a lot of questions. And I'm really excited that you're here because I get to ask a lot of questions about yoga each and every week and talk to some amazing people who are not only in the yoga world, but also in the health and wellness spaces and in entrepreneur spaces. So thank you so much for being here so that we can learn together. I also work as the founder of Pelvic Health Professionals, and this is an online space where movement educators and healthcare professionals collaborate and learn the most up-to-date information regarding pelvic health. And if you're curious about that, visit pelvichealthprofessionals.com. You can join. It's a monthly subscription. It kind of works like Netflix, only it's all about pelvic health and all about learning and collaborating. Also, because I'm a yoga teacher, that is where things really lean in there. So if you are a yoga teacher who wants to bring more information to your students about pelvic health, you can be guaranteed that that's what you're going to hear about a lot in there. So visit pelvichealthprofessionals.com to check that out. This podcast was made for you, the yoga teacher, because I get how it feels to be out in the real world as a yoga teacher, leaving your yoga teacher training and kind of facing this daunting task of not only learning more and more about yoga all the time, but also running a business. So I wanted you to have a place where you could connect to other yoga teachers' ideas and information each and every week. Today's episode is powered by OfferingTree. I use and love this software in my own business because it automates everything and it saves me time and money. It automates my bookings, my payments, Zoom links, reminders, and so much more. And we have a special podcast listener discount for you over at OfferingTree.com/Shannon. Now, today's episode is a part 2 because I had so much to say last week and I wanted it to be a quick episode for you because I know it's summer and your time is limited. And I thought, gosh, there's more things that I wanted to share with you. So it's a check-in, and I know this is sort of a one-way conversation where you're listening to me and I'm sharing what's going on with me personally and in business. But I also wonder how you're doing. And so maybe we just take a moment right now to pause. And if you're driving, keep your eyes open. But if you're in a place where you're like, yeah, I can close my eyes for a moment or I want to, do that. Check in with your breath. Just notice without trying to change anything. And really check in with yourself for a moment, asking, how am I doing right in this moment? And maybe you want to invite some movement in or invite a nice rib cage breath in where you feel your rib cage expanding on that inhale all around. Or maybe you'd like to dance around and shake things off. Do whatever feels like, okay, that's what I need right now. So a quick check-in, and then what would help me in this moment? Maybe it's making yourself a really nice warm tea or curling up with a blanket and having a listen to today's episode. Maybe it's like, no, I need to get this project done. I need to clean this closet or do this thing, and I'm going to listen to this podcast and hang out in the meantime. And I'm just really grateful that you're here doing that. So as I said last week, and as I shared last week, I'm in a season right now or in this moment right now where I guess I just need to sit in some grief. I want to be honest. I really don't want to be sitting in it. And maybe at some point I can share the full story on this, but right now it isn't only my story. And if I shared it, I feel like it may hurt some people. So even though I can't share it, I can share with you that it's feeling really crappy and it's taking up a lot of my brain space. It's taking up a lot of my energy. I'm super grateful that I have friends and family and a good therapist and Sean and the kids who are all so supportive in this. And also for those of you who continue to support this podcast and the work that we're doing here. So just by listening to today's episode, or if you tell others about the podcast, or you leave us a review, or you sign up for an offering that we're promoting, and I'll tell you about one in a moment, I want to say that makes such a big difference. Also, to those of you who take the time to share something on Instagram or Facebook, or send me a message on there, or send a voice message, it helps so much. Your questions and your thoughts are really the fuel for future episodes. And messages like this one that I got a while back help to keep me going. Here's a message that I got from a podcast listener, Allie. Have a listen to it.
Hi, Shannon. This is Ali. I am originally from Paraguay, but I'm living in Australia. I'm a yoga teacher, trained physiotherapist, and Pilates instructor. I'm teaching yoga in different clinical settings, and I'm learning so much from your podcast. And I just wanted to thank you so much for all the knowledge and all the experiences that you share. And it's like I feel so relatable to your stories, and I'm always learning something. Over the past few months, I've been listening to many, many episodes, and you have so many. So I just shared it with everyone who I feel will appreciate, because they are so valuable. So thank you so, so much. And congratulations for all the work that you do. You are a very inspiring person. And I would love to sometime getting to know you, and just that. Thank you so much.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Allie. I know you left this message a long time ago. I did not forget about it. It was sitting in a folder where it says get permission to share. And we had gotten permission. Thank you so much for giving us permission to share this. And then it sits in this folder where on the tough days of running a business, I'm I could always go there and have a listen to a message. And this was perfect timing this week of heading over there and having a listen. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast, for saying that it means enough to you, that it's supporting you, and that you're sharing it out into the world. That means so much. And Connected Yoga Teachers, if you're where can I leave a message? If you head over to our website, theconnectedyogateacher.com, there's a button there on the right-hand side. It's SpeakPipe. It will allow you to leave 90 seconds of a message, but don't worry, you can leave multiple messages. It's a free version of the software. I've looked at doing the paid software, but as you're going to hear, I need to watch what I spend on software, and I'll talk about that a bit more in a moment. I also want to share another message we got recently from a listener, Jody, who I feel like I know because I've been following Jody for a while on Instagram, and I just love what she shares on there. She's a yoga therapist, she's a fellow Canadian, and she's really passionate about being outside in nature, but also about helping people who are dealing with persistent pain, and especially about feet. And so I want to share with you a message that Jody shared after listening to the episode that we recently did on plantar fasciitis.
Hi, Shannon. It's Jody. I just listened to the podcast a couple of days ago, and I wanted to just comment on a couple of things. It's the one with Diana on plantar fasciitis. Anyways, just to say that I love all of Diana's work to begin with, and that it's so great that she shared this information with your readers. I had chronic plantar fasciitis for years, painful feet. Couldn't understand people that didn't have foot pain, actually. And all the things that the doctor told me to do were not the things that helped. the orthotics, I did ultrasound, shockwave therapy, the ice, the this and the that. None of it helped. What helped is exactly the types of things that Diana talked about. And I believe building strength in your feet. And then the only other thing I would say that I don't think she mentioned is the suppleness. So I'm not a massage therapist, but I did a lot of self-massage. So I know she talked about using a ball, but I also just used my hands and did a lot of self-massage. I used some toe spacers. I found some really good, nice, comfy ones as well that helped a little bit. So I did want to mention that strength and suppleness. Of course, I ran out of time. It's Jody again. And then the other thing, like some of the most basic things like the tripod foot, so important because it's not always cued that way, and I cue it constantly. I had to laugh when she talked about not wearing shoes because what people are told is to support the foot. And by not wearing shoes, then you're getting your feet to work again and to build up the strength and the musculature. I know it's hard at first, and as she said, you might have to do it slowly, but it's so important to get that back. And then just to say that, we don't tend to pay a lot of attention to our feet until we get pain. We're kind of disconnected, our head and our brain are way up on the top towards the sky, and no one pays much attention to their feet. So I'm really, if anyone that knows me and my yoga classes and yoga therapy, I'm always going on about the feet as really they're our base of support as we move, if we want to move through life. So anyways, just to say that I always love your work. I love what you did here. I love what Diana had to offer all the listeners. It was really, really great to hear her and with all her knowledge and experience. Thanks again.
Thank you, Jody. I'm so glad that we've connected. I'm so grateful that you took the time to leave this message. And after having a listen to the episode on plantar fasciitis, and I know you're really passionate about helping people with their foot health. Someday I hope we meet up in real life. I think it's possible. We both live in Canada. I know there's some distance between us, but I think it's possible. Same goes for you, Allie, and any other listeners. I really am thinking, how can we meet up? And I have an idea. I'm going to share an idea that I have. It's just a percolating idea. There's nothing to sign up for yet. Now, one way that we can meet up, it is online, it's not in person, but it is a way that we can connect, meet up, and it also really supports the work that we're doing over here. So we have a yoga series that we're hosting. Sarah Garden, who's a yoga therapist, is teaching it, and it starts this month. And when you sign up for offerings that we have, especially the paid offerings, it helps us to continue to share this podcast with you for free, which is really important to me. I want all yoga teachers to have access to weekly topics that will help them at no charge. Because I know you pay enough for your yoga teacher training, all of the supplies, your gas money to get to class. I know that teaching yoga is not known to be like, this is a get-rich-quick scheme. And I want you to have the support that you need. And I know that this is something that I wished was out there when I, came out of my yoga teacher training. So this is a big part of the podcast. So if you want to support other things that we do, if you're at a place in your life and you're like, oh, I'd really like to sign up for that, and I'm at a place where I can pay for something, you can register for this yoga session with Sarah Garden. Head on over to pelvichealthprofessionals.com and click on yoga. There's a drop-down menu there and look for yoga for endo. So Sarah's going to be teaching us about how to practice yoga and teach yoga to people who are dealing with persistent pelvic pain and endometriosis. And I'll link to a podcast episode that we did with Sarah, and I'll also link to the event that we're doing. So it's 7 weeks. It starts Thursday, September 21st. 7 Thursdays it runs. I can't wait to see anyone who can attend. I'll be there live for the session. I'm not sure what my role is yet, if I'm helping with tech or if I'm going to be there as a participant. But the great news is that if you can't be there live, then you can access the replays for a full year. And we keep getting feedback from yoga teachers saying like, oh my gosh, this really helped me to teach this thing in my own community, to share this with my yoga students. And it just feels like such a win-win. You get to show up and practice and learn, okay, how can I bring some of this into my community? And then you also have the replays so you can go back and watch them and do them again for yourself or to learn and improve your teaching. We've done 2 other online sessions so far, and that's the biggest feedback that we've gotten from yoga teachers and PTs is that it has really helped them to offer this to their community. Oh, and I have a discount code for you. So you'll go over to pelvichealthprofessionals.com and like I said, click on yoga, then look for yoga for endo. I know this is a few steps here, but it's going to be worth it because it'll save you $50. So use the code podcast50 when you check out. And if you're wondering like, where do I apply the discount code? Not to worry, you're going to sign in with your name and your email and you'll see there, look for the wording there that talks about discount code. And I also want to mention that all of our signups, so when you sign up for any offering like this, you're signing up with our software that we use, OfferingTree. So not only is this a company that supports this podcast as a sponsor so that it's free for you, but they're also the software that I use and love for my own business. And I tell yoga teachers and studios about them all the time because of this reason. So last week in my update, I shared that when I looked at my year of expenses within my business, that my software has been way up in price in the last few years. I just want to clarify this does not include OfferingTree. And I'm actually looking at how I can switch more things in my business over to OfferingTree because they're expanding what their software can do and their prices are way more accessible. As many of you know, it's not easy to run a small business. And I love that OfferingTree makes it easier. They automate things so that I'm not wasting time and money. And they're also a company that cares about their customers and social justice issues. So if you are looking for where you can make a website or you're wanting a booking software or a place where people can pay you for your offerings or you can upload your videos to share them with students, check out OfferingTree and use our discount code. That's offeringtree.com/Shannon. So in some personal, exciting news, we're about to welcome our second Rotary Exchange student to our home this month. She's traveling here from Brazil. There's been some visa issues, so we're not really sure when she's arriving, but by the time this episode goes out, she should be here. And she'll stay here in Canada for almost a full year. And then she'll stay with us and 2 other families throughout that year. And on that note, some of you, I might have talked about this in a previous episode. We had another exchange student last year, and we're really missing her. Her name is Avril. She was here with us for a lot of the time last year. She even came and helped make maple syrup. She's now returned back to her home in France, and we're looking at when we can go and visit her. So if you are a connected yoga teacher and you're in France, maybe someday we'll connect in person. And if you're like, yes, let's arrange that, you can message me on Instagram. That's probably the best way to reach me. I'm at the Connected Yoga Teacher. Also, some more exciting news is Sean and I have taken on a hiking challenge this year, and we're more than halfway to the finish line. We're hiking the Bruce Peninsula section of the Bruce Trail, along with over 20 other Ontario hiking friends. And we're doing this stretch of 162 kilometers in 18 hikes. I love the way it's laid out. It's been so much fun to meet new people and to hike with really, people who are so into nature, hiking, birds, trees, fungus, all kinds of things. I just love that we've found a bunch of nature nerds. And along this hike, our amazing leaders, Randy and Saber, told us that Sean and I should become hike leaders. And at first, we just sort of laughed this off. We both do love hiking and being in nature. And so we started to think more seriously about it. Maybe we could do this. So we did it. We said yes. And just this week, we graduated and became certified hike leaders for Ontario. And next, we need to lead some supervised hikes and update our CPR training. And then we can lead hikes for our local Peninsula Hiking Club. So on that note, I'm going to link to the Bruce Trail website in the show notes because this is just an amazing way to connect to nature, fellow hikers, and also the sights of Ontario. So if you ever visit the Bruce Peninsula or you ever visit Ontario, I would highly recommend checking this out. And also reach out and let me know because maybe we can hike together. That would be so fun. So I think I said last week, and I think I've said in other episodes, like since the pandemic and since COVID, I really do miss doing things more in person. And so the hiking is helping. And I've been saying yes to more things like that. And I've been thinking about how to add in more social time because I'm an extrovert for sure. I do like quiet time at home and in the garden and alone and out in nature. But too much of this alone time makes me sort of lose touch with the world. And I feel like I physically get this kind of like floating out into the ethers feeling if I have too much of that. So I have been looking at how I can have more social time. I've been doing some volunteering and things like that. And I had this idea of doing a connected yoga teacher gathering or retreat where there's time in the garden where we learn how to grow food and support the pollinators and support, Mother Earth. Some time hiking, sometimes swimming, sometime doing yoga, and all while connecting with other connected yoga teachers. So if you are interested in this, tell me. And make sure also that you're on my email list and you're subscribed to the podcast because that's where I'll definitely share news on that as we go with you first in those places. And you can find out how to subscribe to our email on the Connected Yoga Teacher website. And also don't hesitate to reach out to me, probably on Instagram at the Connected Yoga Teacher and tell me, hey, I'm interested in this. Because if I got enough people to say that right away, I might start to put this together. Now, I wanted to get into a pretty personal share because you're still here listening. Over the last 2 weeks, I kind of had this like meltdown, I would say, or I wouldn't say it was burnout, but it was as close as I've ever been in the last 7 years of podcasting to really look at, do I need to quit my job? And, a while back, Rebecca Sebastian and I talked at length about how it can be normal to have feelings or thoughts about quitting and getting a job where someone else tells you what to do and then you go home at night and you stop thinking about it. And I'll link to that episode in the show notes because many of you have told me and Rebecca that this episode brought you comfort. But something was very different about this for me. And I talked with our team here. So a huge shout out of thank you to Kelly, who does our bookkeeping, accounting, Sinead, Crunch, and Suzanne for just being so amazing. They all had supportive words and ideas for me. I also talked with Sean and some close friends, and I really came to the conclusion that I needed to shift and do a few things differently. So number one is I needed to look at taking a break. And I talked about this in a previous podcast episode. I'll link to that. And I need to take my own advice on this, and I need to lean on my team a bit more. And I don't know what that all looks like yet. I'm happy to talk about this more in future podcast episodes. But the short story is that as a podcast listener, like someone who consumes podcasts, I do not like it when my favorite shows take a break or play old episodes that I have already heard. When I really get into a podcast and I've listened to all the episodes, I really look forward to that new one coming out. I don't know if you're the same way as me, but that is why I really try and avoid taking a break with the podcast. And honestly, this part, this talking to you, interviewing guests, thinking of topics, that work I could do in my sleep. But I realized that there are some other tasks that are on my plate that do suck the life out of me as an entrepreneur. And I need to look at passing those over to someone who actually enjoys doing those tasks. We've talked about hiring VAs here on the podcast. I'm happy to link to those episodes in the show notes, and also, taking a break, avoiding burnout, recognizing brownout. And I want to say here that even though I logically know these things, it feels like sometimes it's not the easiest thing to do. Like passing on emails is one thing that I've been thinking about. I really love to write very personal emails to all of you. And maybe for a while, I just need to pass that over or take a break completely from writing my emails. And I'm taking a big breath here because I do enjoy hearing back from you all and writing those emails. So that's number one on my list. If you have ideas and you are like, this is what helped me to take a break, I am all ears. Number two is to continue to be out in nature as often as possible. So this not only balances out the hours that I spend in my office and in front of a computer screen, but also I just find like it feels like it's a creative hobby, but also a way to move my body and kind of process things that are going on in my life. Like working out in the garden, my yoga practice, and therapy feel like these are the things that are holding me right now. So I'm looking at how I can still be out in nature. And we're moving into fall, which equals winter. And if you've been here for a while, you know that I sometimes struggle when the snow starts falling here in Canada. Okay, number three is to listen to my gut on this and in this season that I'm in, and to really notice. And this is where I think that yoga really serves me. So I for sure love to hear from people and love to hear their ideas and their advice, especially when they know and love me really well. But I also know that I have to feel this out for myself. And I want to give a huge shout out of gratitude to Sean, my partner, who keeps reminding me of this, especially when I feel like overwhelmed. And I just say like, what should I do? And there's no quick answer and there's no quick way out of this. And he's such a good listener. He reminds me, because he also has a very strong yoga practice, he reminds me to sit with this and do what feels best for me. And he's also reminded me not to settle for something that isn't, that really good fit, especially in the moments when I'm like, I think I'll just go work at Tim Hortons. So if you need that reminder of like, can you sit in this moment if it's a difficult season? Can you notice? And then can you really give yourself the best opportunities going forward? Number 4 on my list of like things I need to do right now is ask for support and help. And that includes like asking you for support and help. Like, thank you for being here, listening to the podcast. If you enjoyed any episode that we've done, can you share it with other yoga teachers? Can you talk about the podcast on social media? Or can you tell OfferingTree, who's our sponsor, that you heard about them from us on the podcast? That really helps us. Also, like I said earlier, if you want to support the work that I'm doing, sign up for our next yoga series with Sarah Garden, or share it with friends who are dealing with pelvic pain or endometriosis. So like I said, when you pay for an offering that we're doing, like this yoga series, it helps us to continue to offer this podcast for free to you and to other yoga teachers. Now I'm curious, what other things do you think I could add to this list? I really do love this work. The messages that I get from yoga teachers from around the world telling me how this podcast is helping and supporting them is why I keep going when there's a season like this. And honestly, I believe that all entrepreneurs are dealing with times like this, and many are not sharing when they're, in the muck of it, in the trenches. And so if you're feeling like you want to quit, or life is really heavy right now in this season for you, I definitely don't have all the answers. I'm just here in the muck with you. And it sucks some days. And so maybe we can, endure and weather this season that feels really tough together. Maybe our yoga right now is about awareness. So noticing how our body is feeling, noticing where our mind is going. Maybe it helps to move, to get outside for a walk or call a friend or listen to a podcast that brings you comfort or that makes you laugh. It felt really important to me over the last couple of weeks to share what's going on with you, to share what's really kind of going on behind the scenes so that you know that you're not alone when you hit these bumps in the road as an entrepreneur. And I am just so grateful that you have spent the time listening today to my update. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to see how you're doing. I hope that this episode has brought some comfort in some way. Next week on the podcast, we're going to be talking with Emily, who is talking with us about how she set a learning schedule so that she could actually use the membership full of content that she signed up for. So this episode is for you if you've ever bought a course or paid for a membership and you know that taking in that content and doing the learning in there is going to help you as a yoga teacher, but you struggle to sit down and do it, make it happen, and it just kind of sits in the back of your mind. This episode is for you. I remember Emily telling me what she was doing when she was taking on the content of Pelvic Health Professionals, our membership, and I just thought this needs to be an episode because I know so many yoga teachers that sign up for something and don't do the learning part of it, especially with online offerings. So I'm really excited about next week's episode. As far as I know, we're not taking a podcasting break over here. This is the work that does light me up, and I want to keep doing this. You might see that, I don't know, maybe I will be taking a break from other things, but for now, we're going to be right here on the podcast. Thanks to our amazing team here, Suzanne, Crunch, and Sinead. And mostly thanks to you for being here, for listening, for sharing the podcast, for subscribing and downloading, and that all really makes a difference. As usual, I have a question for all of us this week. What are we going to be doing this week to stay connected to ourselves, our yoga practice, and to our community so that we can share the yoga that lights us up?